Are you ready to go to the series you most want to talk about, which is Sacramento and Golden State?
Yes.
Okay. We have to do the obligatory Draymond Green discussion as little as you want to do it, as little as I want to do it, because
Yeah.
now it actually plays like a real impact in the series. Draymond Green has been suspended for stomping on Domantas Sabonis. The suspension was stated to be for not only the stomp, but also for a buildup of continued actions of Draymond Green in his past. So you and I were actually like, you were watching this on your playback channel with Zach Milner. I was in the room watching it happen. And my reaction to you guys was just like, I don't know how they're going to look at this.
Mm-hmm.
When it happened, I felt like your reaction was kind of the same. I know Zach's was. I don't really remember if you spoke up about it. When you saw what Draymond did, what was your reaction? And now that you have seen the suspension, what is your reaction to the suspension, the reasoning behind the suspension, everything to do with the Draymond Green missing game 3 portion of the proceedings?
Yeah, I mean I thought it was dumb in the moment. And I think that the suspension is fine. Like I get it. It's way too much. That being said too, like I think it was clear, even if you want to make the argument that it looked like Domas was defending his face, like he did grab his leg. And I don't think that you can equate the two. Like there's a very big difference between grabbing someone's leg and then putting your full force down on them. I also think that some people have just gone way too far with running this and make it seem like Draymond was being like, egregiously malicious. Like I do think that overall I did not like any of that from what we saw from Draymond, but I also think like just got to remember that it's a game sometimes, and shit happens. Not trying to excuse it, but touch grass, you know. But yeah, I think the suspension was fine. I hate that it's going to impact the series, but you do stupid things and it comes back to bite you. Like I think when that, especially like if he had some kind of hot reaction and then cooled down a little bit
Yeah.
and tried to talk to Domas and not even saying he had to apologize, but just be like, hey, it was in the moment, we're past it, whatever. But like going over and like taunting the crowd and egging them on, like that was kind of that
Not
was a little.
ideal.
I would imagine that probably contributed to this suspension, if we're being honest.
It was a suboptimal choice from Draymond, I think.
Yeah. So I just like I don't know what other option you wanted to have. People were going to be mad either way. I get it. So yeah, that's where I'm at on it.
Okay, I just wanted to spell a couple of like really fucking stupid things I've seen people say about this. First and foremost, I get that like the league might be a little bit frustrated with Draymond Green. There is no fucking way that the league wants the Kings to win this series
Oh
more than
yeah,
Golden State.
that's,
Like, I have seen some people say that, and that like there is some massive conspiracy against Draymond Green in regard to his actions in the past and in regard to the new collective bargaining agreement, where some of the ownership measures that were taken actually do restrict Golden State moving forward in terms of spending. Uh, do you know how much fucking money the league is going to make if it's a Lakers Golden State series?
immense amounts.
Like, are you guys stupid? What are we doing here? Like, there is no. I'm not saying that the league wants the Kings to lose. I don't think that's true either. I don't think they're meddling in any regard here. I'm just saying that if they are going to meddle, the logical response here is not to meddle in favor of the Kings if you're the league. So that is not what's happening. If you're the Kings, is like I've seen some conspiracy theories the other way that like and I'm just like, why are we conspiracy theorying this? Like, it seems pretty simple to me. And I think it's like from people who don't watch other sports, kind of as well. In the NHL, for instance, every single time that someone, is a repeated offender of poor play in terms of illegal checks, I'm wearing
Oddly
a
Koozie. Yeah.
yeah, I was gonna say I'm wearing a Pittsburgh hat right now. The guy that stands out immediately in my mind is Matt Cook, right? Matt Cook was a dude that played on the edge, was frankly a dirty player as a winger that was like a great penalty killer, third line player, really, really valuable guy during the Penguins run in the late 2000s in early 2010s and everything. Every time he got suspended, they'd be like, look, this guy is a repeated offender. I think that it's more that the league is looking at doing things a little bit of a different way. I don't think that it's like a conspiracy one way or the other. Now, I'm willing to hear out the argument of whether or not the league should have considered, repeat offenders and everything like that. As far as I know, like the NHL, like they announced when they were going to start doing that. And the NBA, from what I've seen, has never actually really done this before in terms of considering past actions within a player suspension. And I don't love that. The other thing that I think is that's happening that is really interesting about this. Have you noticed the groundswell of players that have actually stuck up for Draymond Green in this setting?
Yeah, Dame.
Oh, no, it's Dame was one of them for sure, but it's a lot more than Dame. Like I feel like almost to a person outside of, I think, Chima Moneke, who started the season with the Sacramento Kings. I feel like every single player that's come out has been in more on the Dre side than on the Kings side. If we're, trying to separate between the two just for ease of conversation. And I do find that piece of it interesting. And ultimately, I would not have suspended Draymond Green. I think it's doubling down on he got ejected. I don't think he should be ejected and suspended for what he did, given that Domantas Sabonis grabbed his leg, given that it was kind of a questionable thing across the board. But I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah,
either.
I'm in the same boat. Like
Stupid.
I personally wouldn't do the suspension myself, probably. I also haven't really thought about it. I don't have control over it, but yeah, it's like I can't really fault them for suspending him either.
So how does this affect game 3 in your mind? So now we can move on to what this series actually looks like moving forward.
It's not good. Like I mean I don't know who they're even gonna start in his place. They're gonna start Kaminga, like who they have been pretty hesitant to play all that much. I don't think Anthony Lamb has logged a minute in this series. Like
I just want to shout out Sam Esfandiari and Andy Liu on the Light Years show. They were talking about like who's going to step up, and then Sam just played Hero by Nickelback or Chad Kroger. I can't remember if it's all of Nickelback. And then just like flashed up Anthony Lamb like on screen. It was one of the better bits I've seen on a podcast.
yeah.
Anthony Lamb is certainly not anybody's version of a hero. Both seemingly, allegedly, let's say, off the court or on the court. But man, this is bad for the Warriors. It feels like if Anthony Lamb is going to have to play real minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be completely honest. I didn't feel all that optimistic about the Warriors coming out of game 2, even with Draymond not being announced as suspended yet, or not expecting him to be announced as suspended. And this makes me all the more worried.
Mark, let's start here. You picked the Kings in this series.
Yeah, I said Kings in 6.
Yeah, like you have been on the Kings here for a while, and I think maybe that's the best place to start the conversation. Why did you like the Kings coming into this series?
I mean, I just looking at this point blank, I did not feel that the Warriors are going to be able to just come in and quote unquote flip a switch. I think that anytime that we've looked at a team, and I know it's different when a team is, like they're defending champs. And I think we maybe got skewed a little bit by what the Cavs were able to do with the few years after they won their title, where they kind of did do that. I just have not felt good about this Warriors team all year, other than a few stretches where they kind of put things together. And to be fair, too, like we are one really good Jordan Poole game away from feeling very differently about this, but that didn't happen. I think I've just felt that there has been such a a real struggle for this team to really create anything outside of Steph. And I think that was so indicative in game two. Like even with Clay, I thought found some footing in that game. Like the Kings were so comfortable in trying to defend him. Like they do not have an answer to try and make the Kings play away differently. And I wrote about it today with what the Kings did do in game two that was so effective. Like I mean, there were entire possessions where, I mean, the Warriors ran 6, 7 actions and they didn't touch inside the arc. Like they were, granted, I don't expect like to put it into reference. Like I thought that was one of the best defensive performances I've seen in basketball from the Kings. Like that wasn't just a good game. That was when you're looking at what their talent is, what their game plan was. That was about as flawlessly executed as I thought you could do. So I don't expect that to be the norm moving forward, to be fair, but also, I mean, the way that they made Steph work for everything while also not being punished for the way that they were playing was like,
Yeah.
it's the kind of thing that, again, unless Jordan Poole like goes absolutely off, which given the last month, I'm not sure we're going to see that. Um, I don't know what answers they have to really go off with this because, yeah, they've just been playing incredibly well, and more importantly too, like I thought that they have really struggled to stop the Kings as a whole themselves. Like the Kings
Yeah.
are kind of like again, I wrote about this too because I've just been so fascinated by this team. Like they are the only team that I've really felt in watching the last couple of years that is comfortable playing at the same pace for 48 minutes that the Warriors want to play at.
Yep.
And that has worked incredibly well in their favor. They haven't been rattled by anything, even in stretches like again in game two. They had like a 2 or 3 minute stretch in the third quarter when the game was getting kind of close. They opted for like 5 or 6 possessions in a row of taking the first shot available, missed almost all of them. But then their defense was able to keep things tight, and then they went off and ripped off like 4 or 5 straight possessions of really good offense. And um, I just feel very confident in the Kings continuing to do what they're doing. Obviously, there's going to be adjustments on both sides, but I feel that this team has a lot more in terms of answers on either end that they've been able to run through and will be able to run through. So yeah, I feel very positive about where the Kings are at right now.
So the Jordan Poole conundrum in this series, I think, is real because the Warriors kind of need him. And the reason they need him is because they need an injection of just offensive creativity
Yeah.
to be able to beat these guards in some way. Right. De'Aaron Fox and Davion Mitchell have done an absolutely fantastic job of chasing over the top in ball screens, of just getting aggressive and disrupting things at the point of attack before the Warriors even get into their sets. I think with Mitchell particularly
Well,
being,
yeah, even like in game two, they were full court pressing Steph Curry
yep,
the entire game off makes. So anytime
yep,
there was a made basket, De'Aaron Fox or Davion Mitchell's picking him up. But then the other thing that I thought was of equal importance, they're like 3/4 court pressing every player. So
yes.
they're making every single pickup point. They have a
They're
hand
making
on every
Dante
single
work.
player,
Like,
which
yeah,
is
they're
like
making it. Yeah.
like I think that gets undersold in how you defend this team because like obviously like I think there have been teams where they're just willing to completely sag off Kevon Looney or Draymond Green, and then you see okay, well we'll just do a quick ball reversal and you can't get over the
Yep.
top of the screen and you're screwed. Or teams completely overplay, allow the slip, and that gets opened up. But they've been so locked in on okay, we're going to hedge every 1-5 ball screen. We're going to late switch if we have to, if your screen takes us out. We're going to make sure that we're rotating hard into the lane to force pickups before you can put the ball on the ground. And then we're going to be really crisp on our rotations. And like that is just so like I think what's been so fun to watch is like you to have all 5 guys capable of playing together like that has been like legit special. Like that is so
Yeah.
difficult to actually do. Um,
Yeah.
and it's just it was awesome. Like I think like we haven't even mentioned it. Sabonis was so good defensively in game two.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
legitimately hung out on an island on Steph, rode out drives by Clay. Um, and was generally just so good with his activity and his help. And that was, yeah, I rewatched that game again this morning. It was so good.
Well, the thing with Sabonis is Sabonis struggles with guys who can turn the corner on him.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like not a terrible space defender. He fights, like he's willing to battle. It's just that he doesn't have the speed a lot of the time to do it. Again, Jordan Poole is really the only guy that has the speed to be able to like really beat him off the bounce. Like, all due respect to Steph Curry, Steph can do it, but like Steph is a dancer. He's not a like I am going to get downhill and drive guy. The problem with Jordan Poole in this series is you can't really play him defensively against the Kings. They are going to get him. They are so good with their early actions in terms of getting the matchup that they want switched on to De'Aaron Fox with like little ghost screens, little early actions off the ball to force switches. They're so good at those little things to pinpoint the mismatches that they want, that De'Aaron can almost always find it. And with his speed, it becomes very, very difficult for those mismatches to not be exploited, especially with the synergy between he and Sabonis in some of those dribble handoffs, in some of those exchanges, some of the just like little pistol actions, some of the zoom actions that they run. Like, a lot of things become very, very difficult to guard when Jordan Poole is out there, frankly, because Jordan Poole is also not a particularly attentive off-ball defender that often ends up being stuck behind the 8-ball when those off-ball actions kind of start, and then he's constantly in recovery mode, and then he's switched on to De'Aaron Fox, and it's like, oh, fuck, I'm screwed. I don't know how to kind of like square that circle if I'm the Warriors in this series, because I almost think that if you can't get into this and try and outscore the Kings. Like, I think that is actually how you lose this series straight up. But without Draymond, I don't know how they actually defend the Kings. So in this game coming up, I almost think that you have to lean in to what the Kings do, play up tempo, and just pray that Steph and Clay go nuts, and have Poole out there and try and beat them like 130 to 120. And I know that that's a bad idea. I know how dumb this is as I'm saying it. I just kind of think you got to let it roll and pray. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree, because I think one of the bigger things that you can try and hope for, like, how much can they get away with playing Davion Mitchell again? Which I think, like, I don't think that's going away anytime soon, but he played just over 28 minutes in game 2. For reference, like, he and Fox have played more. They've played 67 total possessions together in the playoffs, and they played 400 possessions in the entire regular season together. So, like, I mean, everything was so much about staggering the two. And part of what made them so successful defensively was being able to have both of them and having both those pressure points. And Davion had an awesome offensive game, while noting too, like, Golden State just left him the hell alone the entire game.
Yeah.
Even with ball screens, like, everything was all right. Go under, let him take shots, let him make decisions. We're cool with that. And he played well. Like, he hit a couple of pull-up twos. I tweeted it out, like, the corner 3 that he hit that put them up 7 was the biggest shot of his career so far as a pro. Like, he has struggled so much from 3 the entire year. To take that in rhythm with confidence while sagged off of was immense. And I mean, that's so much what unlocked him to be as impactful as he's been the most impactful defender in the series so far. Like,
yeah, oh, no question.
Like, yeah, easily. So for him to be able to do that and have that offensive game was huge. I think what you can maybe try and hope for is, like, okay, maybe we can put Jordan Poole on Davion, hope that it doesn't go terribly, and try and get away with that so that you can continue to do stuff defensively. But even then, like, I don't think that is perfect. But I do think that they need to get a lot more from him if they're going to make anything go. But I think my bigger question even is, like, what do they do in the front court? Because not having Draymond, obviously, like, of course, that's huge. You can't have Looney get into foul trouble again. Which, granted, I think some of the fouls were a little bit weak, but for the most part, I thought they were earned. But like, yeah, I mean, who are they comfortable playing? Like, it was weird. Like, I was not expecting them to be more comfortable playing Moses Moody than Jonathan Kuminga. Like, I
Yeah, that
think
was
like,
bizarre.
yeah,
I
I
was
was a
surprised.
little bit confused by that. Like, I thought maybe the idea was, okay, well, we think that Moody is going to be more respected as a shooter at least, but I thought that, to me, I would have rather seen them go with Kuminga. I haven't, especially too, like, he played really well down the back end of the season. So I was a little bit vexed by that decision. I do wonder what his minutes look like in the next couple of games.
So yeah, I completely agree. I think that like the Davion Mitchell portion of it is fascinating because you started to see the Warriors play off of him more and more. And I would imagine you're going to continue to see that in a real way. The second piece of what you said there, just in terms of who comes in and plays, what does it look like? I thought Moses Moody, I had an NBA like front office person. We were talking about the series, and one thing he mentioned is that he was similarly surprised to you about Moses Moody being the choice in that second quarter, particularly to come off the
Mhm.
bench. And this is where I have some questions about just the way Steve Kerr has operated this roster this season. You would think that if you want to trust Moses Moody in that spot, right, you would have been playing him throughout the course of the year to get him the experience he needs. And Moses stepped up, like he was okay in that spot. Like
Yeah, that
I
was a
remember,
big tip in, which is
yeah,
one of my favorite parts of scouting him was how active he was on the offensive glass as a guard. But yeah, exactly. Like, it was extremely unexpected.
yeah, and I thought he acquitted himself better than what I would have anticipated. And yet, I don't know how much they're going to be able to rely on it and trust it. Like, do you do something wild like just start him in place of Draymond Green?
I still that's tough because
I look, I start Kuminga and just say, John, you have 25 minutes, you go. Because
well,
like
because
John,
my biggest thing, like, he's at least gonna be aggressive. Like, I think
yeah,
he is aggressive in attacking in the flow of the offense. It's not always perfect, but I think he got a lot better at that this year. So I would rather see that. Especially too, because like, he can at least maybe draw some fouls or be active in the paint and helpful on the glass too, because like, that has been a problem for this team. Like, they need to
yeah,
have more of the size and more of the ability to cover ground like that. Not that Moody's like bad in that way. Like, he is a good rebounder
yeah.
himself, but it's just, I don't know. It's in a weird spot for me. And I think, especially too, because we almost, I don't want to sound unfair. Like, I just think, to an extent, people got a little bit too carried away with what the Warriors roster is. Like, I was always just, and I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm victory lapping, but part of the reason I was higher on the Kings, like, there are just too many players on this Warriors roster that I don't care about as a defense. Like, I love Gary Payton II. He's fun to watch. He's an incredibly good defender. But so many times during this game, especially game two, and even with Dante, like, I think Dante has been really rough for me. Like, he's been okay in moments, but like, the fact that you have both those guys who have opportunities with open shots, and they don't even look at the rim, and it's all about continuing to move the ball for Steph and Clay. Like, I think they almost leaned too much into it, and they over, like,
Yeah.
I felt legitimately in game two that they overpassed the ball, and there were moments where they could have maybe tried to capitalize on how much the Kings were willing to put pressure on stopping Steph, um, but they didn't. Like, they didn't even look to. And
Yeah.
to be fair, I mean, that speaks to some of the limitations they have as scorers, but um, that was something that was definitely, rough in looking at that.
Yeah. I think that the lack of or the abundance of non-scorers, I think, is a really, really good point here. And it would be a little bit more acceptable if guys like Jordan Poole were playable, and someone like Moses Moody had some more experience, because Moses will also come in and like get shots up. Like he's not, I don't think he's fearful of that aspect typically, which is a credit to him. But like when John Kuminga comes in these games where he's more of like a spot player, I think that he does feel that way. Like it's not about him, but when he has like more of a role, like I would be fascinated to see the splits from him when he plays like 24 minutes plus versus like when he's playing like, 18 minutes or less. Like I would bet you, obviously you would expect the numbers to be way better, but I would bet you per minute, per possession, Jonathan Kuminga is like drastically better, because it feels like you give him that confidence to go and be aggressive. And I think he's willing to do it a little bit more. But yeah, I don't disagree with you that there are too many guys you can sag off of in this series for the Warriors. And they like the Kings don't have those guys. Like Keegan Murray took one shot last game, but the Warriors guard him. Like they're worried about his shooting out there. Like they don't just leave him. You know what I mean? Like Davion Mitchell was better throughout the course of that game, so they played Davion. But when Murray was out there, they don't leave him alone. They don't leave Kevin Huerter. They don't leave Harrison Barnes. Like I guess that like to an extent they leave Trey Lyles, but like they certainly don't leave Malik Monk either, because Malik will go up and get shots up. So it's having those offensive threats on the court, I think, is like the thing that the league's biggest adjustment has been this season. More so than what you do defensively, it's about how many actual tangible threats you can have on the court offensively at once. And part of the Kings' success this year particularly has been almost always having 5 offensive threats on the court at once. And that's a huge, huge thing here when they're playing Golden State.
Yeah, so I totally agree.
I think what you're saying here is a really good, well taken point, Mark. And I'm worried about the Warriors. Like I don't want to play up tempo with the Kings, but I feel like you almost have to without Draymond. And a game where you're playing up tempo with the Kings favors the Kings in this series. So yeah, I think the Kings win game 3, and then they have to win 4 straight. And that's an uphill battle. That's like an almost, historically, at least, that's been an almost impossible task for NBA teams to win 4 straight games in a playoff series after you go down 3-0. Do you have any more thoughts on this series, Mark?
Just to highlight 2 things. Number one, Malik Monk has been incredible. I think he certainly had some off-ball gaffes defensively, but I was really impressed with some of the switches he had on his staff, just some of his ability to be a deterrent defensively and continue to work on that end. I've never been
before your second thing there. Have we talked enough about the Kings perimeter defense yet? Because I think it has been just like absolutely outstanding. We've talked about Davion, but
it was incredible.
Both De'Aaron and Malik have done incredible jobs switching, I think, and just being aggressive at the point of attack, fighting over the top, being willing to get back in the play when they play flatter at the level of coverages, certainly fighting over the top in drop coverage situations. The aggressiveness, as you mentioned earlier, in terms of like the 3/4 court and full court pressing. The guards in this series for the Kings defensively, I think, have been absolutely incredible, and I think they deserve their flowers. I apologize for interrupting.
No, you're good. I mean,
we got that off.
That's exactly what I wanted to say, and more so too. Like the offense has been, there has not been anybody who can guard Malik. It's kind of wild watching because obviously not the same thing, but when he gets his opportunities, it's like watching dribble drive at Kentucky again. Like he's averaging. Granted, 2 games, but he's averaging 9 free throw attempts per game because they have no way to stop him getting downhill. Like he has been the quickest player in the series. Like obviously I think De'Aaron is a faster player than him, quicker first step or whatever, but Malik just attacks the basket in such a different way than De'Aaron does. And having that pairing of both of them, I mean, Golden State has not had an answer. I honestly think like Golden State's defense has been fine for the most part. Or at least solid. I think that the scores just being as high as they have kind of I feel people kind of have their brains wrenched still by it.
Mark, like the Kings last game only scored 114 points. They shot 24% from three and 45% from the field.
I know. I'm just saying
They
people
turned it
look at
over
I've
14
seen where people
times.
say like it's just like
Yeah.
no, but still like I think both teams are playing very well defensively. It's high scoring because the pace is nuts. But
Mm-hmm.
point being, like they just have not had an answer for the blend of downhill aggression and shot making that we've seen from Monk and Fox. Like that's been really hard for them to deal with. And then the last thing I want to say too, like De'Aaron Fox just deserves so much praise and credit for what he's doing. I've been really high on him all season. I ended up having him on third team All NBA, and I feel good about that. I don't think
Me
that
too.
playoffs should factor that whatsoever. But um, one of the things, because we talked about this too, like I just struggle with how people talk about clutch time sometimes. Like it does matter. He's been incredibly good in the fourth in both these games, especially in game two. Like that walking into that step in three that he had off the not put back off the offensive rebound was massive and not quite the game sealer, but about there. The defense he had in game two, that's one of the best defensive games I've seen from him in his basketball career. He had that massive rotation block. I don't remember who the block was on, but had it right around the rim late in the fourth. Was so good as playing as their primary tagger, especially late in the game, operating more on the wing and just covering a ton of ground for them. But again, it's just the continued composure that he's brought in this series, the ability to get to his spots, to still attack the rim. I mean, he's getting to the line a shit ton, which has been a really great part from him that I've wanted to keep seeing. He had that dump off he had to Harrison Barnes was
Yeah.
it seems like such a minor thing, but they had kind of been setting that up all game, the way that he had been driving, kind of getting into more of his step back. He finally has like, all right, a drive where I'm going to get more towards the rim, but then has like the quick pullback and dumps it off to the cutting Barnes after getting the attention of the corner. And like these are the kinds of games and series where like I haven't necessarily pushed the agenda of saying like I think De'Aaron is a legitimate All NBA All Star guy, because I think there was so much of the talk this year was how can a team be have 48 wins and have two guys who don't make the All NBA team. And I think this is one of those series and games where you look at it and it's like that's who he is. Like maybe De'Aaron Fox is a top 25, top 30 player in the league. And I think he's solidifying that for me right now. Like when you have those moments in the playoffs, the highest level that back up what you've done in the regular season. Yeah, it's been really special to watch.
So on the screen currently for you to see and for everyone on YouTube to see as well, I've pulled up the numbers for Malik Monk versus Jordan Poole this year because I find it very fun. Because Malik has been in the NBA for a little while now, I think people don't understand that these two are very close in age. They're only a year apart in terms of age.
Yeah, because Poole
Malik,
played how many years in college again?
2. Malik was also considered a bust early in his career, whereas Jordan is this exciting young player that was a late first round pick, whereas Malik was a lottery pick. Malik Monk currently makes like $9 million a year. Jordan Poole
like that,
is about to make $30 million a year. We just talked about the fact that we think Malik Monk is a little bit better defensively than Jordan Poole. Not to say Malik is some incredible defender, but I think he can hold up just a little bit better in terms of strength as much as anything. I think people underestimate how physically powerful Malik is through his lower half and through his torso. But Malik Monk, across the board in terms of the advanced numbers, better PER, better true shooting percentage, better 3-point attempt rate, better offensive rebounding rate, defensive rebounding rate, better assist rate, slightly better turnover rate, less usage across the board. I mean, Malik Monk had a better season this year than Jordan Poole, right? Like that's, I know Jordan Poole averaged 20 points per game, but that feels pretty indisputable to me that like Malik's season was better than Jordan Poole's this year. And the thing I kind of want to showcase here is just like the entire career numbers, because they are much closer than what I think people would understand.
Mm-hmm.
They are very close, as you guys will see, in terms of all of the advanced numbers, despite the fact that, uh, Malik Monk again was considered this bust who had to rebuild his career with LA last year and with the Kings this year. And Poole has been this savior in many ways for the Warriors continuing to get offense. I mean, that Poole contract is not going to age well, man. I really don't think it is.
I will say, just to hedge a little bit, because we're talking about this with Malik, and like I mean, clearly Poole has hit a little bit of a wall this year. And I think like that we can be talking about this very differently in a year or two. Like I think if this is the same trajectory for another 2 years, then yeah, I think I'll feel the same. But I also think like it is. I'm not ready to be. Not that I think you're saying that you're out. I get what you're saying,
No.
but
Yeah.
it's I will be. I'll be a lot more worried if this is kind of looking the same next year.
Yeah. I look, he had a bad year. We can acknowledge that. Not everyone's great every single season, but Malik Monk is about to be making like a third of what Jordan Poole makes, and those are the tough decisions, because like the Warriors have a Draymond Green decision to make upcoming here. Would you rather keep Draymond Green, or would you rather move Jordan Poole and try and get $15 million back against the cap? Is like a pretty real potential decision here for the Golden State Warriors, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Like,
I don't know how I would answer that.
oh, I know how I would answer it. I would retain Draymond Green, but I also am a mark for Draymond Green. So I understand my flaws as a human, Mark. KYS, know your scout. I know my scout, and my scout is I will always side with Draymond Green in these conversations if I'm trying to keep the Warriors together. But those are the real decisions that are going to have to be made here moving forward for the Warriors, and I think it's important to acknowledge that what we've seen from Jordan Poole is a real, like, real sidestep this year. Maybe even a step back isn't totally unfair for Jordan Poole.